Hey guys, tonight we are stepping back to 17th century England. But we're not going in as a shivering peasant or a grimy street urchin. Oh no, tonight, the good news: you get the fine clothes, the fawning courtiers, the lavish feasts, and a palace so big you could get lost in it. The bad news, well, let's just say your personal physicians have some creative ideas about healthcare, and you're about to become their most important project. Honestly, you might not survive their help. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop your city and the time right now in the comments below. It's always a little magical to see how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you're aware of is the gentle, insistent scratching sound near the floor, followed by a soft whimper. You don't need to open your eyes to know what it is. It's your dogs. A whole pack of them, your beloved King Charles Spaniels, restless for their morning run. You smile faintly. They're allowed everywhere, a privilege no human courtier enjoys. You've heard the whispers, boss, the complaints about the fleas and the mess, but you don't care. They are better company than most people you know. You finally open your eyes, and the world swims into view through the heavy velvet curtains of your colossal four-poster bed. The air in the royal bedchamber at Whitehall Palace is thick and still, carrying the scent of snuffed-out beeswax candles, expensive perfume, and the faint, ever-present, dusty poodle smell of your companions. This is your world. You are Charles II, King of England, Scotland, and Ireland, and life, for the most part, is very, very good. The formal ritual of your day begins. It's called the levee, the king's official rising, and it's less a private moment and more a piece of public theatre. As you sit up, servants scurry forward to part the bed curtains. Suddenly, the room is full of faces. Not just servants, but high-ranking nobles, your gentlemen of the bedchamber, all jostling for a position, all desperate for a word, a glance, a sign of royal favor. One man holds your silk dressing gown, another your stockings, being dressed like a doll in front of an audience. But this is power. Their proximity to your half-naked body is a measure of their status. You are known as the Merry Monarch, a nickname you've earned. After the grim, grey, joyless years of Puritan rule under Oliver Cromwell, you brought the party back to England. You reopened the theatres, you encouraged music and art, and your court is a glittering, gossiping, flirtatious hub of activity. As you walk from your chambers through the stone gallery, the palace hums with life. The air rustles with silk and lace. Men in ridiculously large, curly wigs bow deeply as you pass, maidied, their faces powdered white, flutter their fans and offer dazzling smiles. You have a joke for one, a witty compliment for another. You move through the crowd with an easy, practiced charm that puts everyone at ease. But is it practiced, or is it you? This is a question that even you, in your quietest moments, might not be able to answer. Historians to this day still debate whether your famous affability was a genuine expression of your personality or a carefully constructed political shield. After all, you spent your youth in exile, poor and hunted, while a rebel government chopped off your father's head. You learned early that charm is a form of armor. A smiling, approachable king is much harder to hate and much harder to execute. Your stroll takes you past your personal laboratory. This is your secret passion. Unlike many royals, you have a genuine deep curiosity about the world. You founded the Royal Society, a gathering of the nation's greatest scientific minds. While your courtiers are betting on cards, you're often happy appearing through a microscope or watching a chemical demonstration. There's a delicious irony in it. You, a champion of the new rational science, are surrounded by a medical establishment still clinging to ancient, almost mystical beliefs. But you don't know that yet. Today, however, science can wait. The sun is out. You spend the afternoon playing a vigorous game of P or more, a sort of precursor to croquet, in the park. You're all athletic, and you love the burn in your muscles, the fresh air in your lungs. You feel strong, indestructible, even. At 54 years old, You feel as vital as a man half your age. You walk for miles every day, a habit that leaves many of your puffing, sedentary courtiers exhausted in your wake. The evening is a comfortable blur of good food, fine wine, card games, and the warm, distracting company of your favorite mistress, the Duchess of Portsmouth. The sound of a viol fills the chamber, a soft, melancholic tune that barely cuts through the laughter and chatter. You look around the room at the flickering candlelight dancing on jewels and silk, at the faces of the people who depend on you, who fear you, who love you, who plot a gating game, and you are winning. Life is a vibrant, colorful tapestry. You feel no hint, no premonition, that a single thread is about to be pulled, threatening to unravel it all. As the music plays on and you laugh at a courtier's clumsy joke, your gaze drifts across the room. Standing near the edge of the candlelight, clustered together like a small flock of crows, are your physicians. Dressed in sober, academic black, they stand out against the rainbow of silks and satins worn by everyone else. They aren't celebrating. They're observing. At the head of this little group is your chief physician, Sir Charles Scarberg, a man of immense learning, deep gravity, and a face that looks like it has never once been surprised by joy. You nod to them, a small gesture of acknowledgement. They bow in perfect, solemn unison. To you, they are a necessary, if rather grim, part of the royal furniture symbols of your safety and well-being. You have no idea what's actually going on in their heads. To understand the men who hold your life in their hands, you have to understand their Bible. It's not a religious text, but a medical one, a theory stretching back over 1,000 years to the ancient Greeks. It's called humoral-ism, or the theory of the four humors. And to them, it isn't a theory, it is the fundamental, unshakable truth of the human body. Imagine your body isn't a complex system of organs and cells, but a simple container. Inside this container are, for primary liquids or humors, there's blood associated with air and the spring, which makes you cheerful and optimistic. There's phlegm linked to water and winter, making you calm and thoughtful. Then there's yellow bile, connected to fire and summer, which fuels your passion and ambition. And finally, there's black bile, tied to the earth and autumn, the source of melancholy and introspection. For you to be healthy, like you are right now, these four liquids must be in perfect, harmonious balance. Every single illness, from a common cold to a raging fever, is seen as a simple problem of imbalance. Too much phlegm, you get a cough. Too much yellow bile, you become angry and feverish. It's an elegant, comprehensive, and almost completely wrong system. But in 1685, it is the absolute peak of medical science. Your physician's the most educated, most respected, most expensive in the entire kingdom, believe in it with the certainty of a priest believing in God. This belief system dictates their every action. Since sickness is just an imbalance, the cure is logically, brutally simple. You must rebalance the humors. This is not a gentle process of diet and rest. It's an active, aggressive intervention. If you have too much of a humor, it must be removed. This means bleeding you to reduce the blood, purging you with powerful laxatives to get rid of bile, and making you sweat or vomit to expel other excesses. To your doctors, your body is a battleground, and they are the generals ready to wage a violent war to restore order. And how do they diagnose these imbalances? Well, one of their favorite tools is a flask of your royal urine. They practice something called uroscopy. They will hold the glass vial up to the light, studying its color and clarity with the intensity of a jeweler inspecting a diamond. They have detailed charts, sometimes called urine wheels, that link every possible shade from pale straw to murky brown to a specific internal problem. They'll swirl it, noting the sediment, judging its aroma, and yes, in some cases, a truly dedicated physician might even taste it, checking for sweetness as a clue to your inner workings. This is one of the more peculiar indignities of being a patient in their care, and it's considered cutting-edge diagnostic work. Now, historians still argue about how to view these men. Were they simply quacks, blindly following ancient, nonsensical texts while ignoring the real, observable world around them, or were they the best and brightest of their time, operating with sincere intentions within a tragically flawed paradigm? It's a tough question. After all, you yourself are a great patron of the new experimental science. Your Royal Society is busy discovering blood circulation and microscopic organisms. Yet, when it comes to your own body, these are the men you trust. They are the establishment. They have the degrees, the Latin phrases, and the unshakable confidence that is so reassuring to a patient, even a royal one. Tonight, you pay them no real mind. They are just part of the scenery. Their dark figures are a stark contrast to the glittering joy of the room, a small, somber island in a sea of merriment. You feel perfectly healthy, so their strange theories and arcane charts are irrelevant. You see them, and you feel secure. You believe, as they do, that they could save you from anything. It is a comforting thought. And it is a fatal miscalculation. As your physicians watch you from their corner, another set of eyes is also fixed on you, but with a far more complex mix of emotions. It's your younger brother, James, the Duke of York. He stands near the fireplace, his face rigid, not quite joining in the general revelry. He laughs when he's supposed to, but it doesn't reach his eyes. His relationship with you is a tangled knot of brotherly affection, deep-seated rivalry, and profound political division. You two couldn't be more different. You are the charming, easygoing diplomat, a master of compromise, always ready with a joke to diffuse a tense situation. James is not. He is stern, stubborn, and profoundly tactless. Where you are flexible, he is rigid. Where you are pragmatic, he is dogmatic. The biggest difference, the one that hangs over your entire kingdom like a gathering storm, is religion. You are, at least publicly, the head of the Protestant Church of England. It's a job requirement, however, has openly converted to Catholicism. In 17th century England, this is not a minor personal choice. It's a political firebomb. The country is overwhelmingly, aggressively Protestant. Memories of Catholic plots and persecution are fresh and raw. The great fear, the national nightmare, is a return to a Catholic monarchy, and James is your heir. Since you have no legitimate children with your wife, Queen Catherine, he is next in line for the throne. This single fact has dominated the politics of your reign. You've spent years navigating this minefield. A powerful faction in Parliament, the Whigs, tried desperately to pass an exclusion bill to block James from the succession. It was the biggest political crisis you ever faced. You fought them with every tool you had. You dissolved parliaments, you manipulated elections, you called in old favours. You won, but at a great cost. The kingdom is now fiercely divided between the Whigs, who want to exclude your brother, and the Tories, who support the traditional line of succession, no matter the king's religion. You stand by your brother not just out of principle but perhaps out of a shared memory of exile. You both remember being powerless, dependent on the whims of foreign courts. You remember what it's like to have your world torn apart by political strife. Yet, you are not blind to the trouble he causes. His very presence is a magnet for plots and conspiracies, both real and imagined. Just a few years ago, you survived the Rye House plot, a genuine conspiracy by radical Whigs to assassinate both you and James as you returned from the Newmarket races. You were supposed to travel on a specific day, but a fire at Newmarket forced you to leave early, which completely foiled the ambush. You survived by pure dumb luck. So as you look at James across the room, you see not just a brother, but your greatest political liability. He is the walking, talking embodiment of the kingdom's deepest anxieties. Your entire political strategy, your life's work of balancing factions and maintaining peace, is all built around managing the James problem. The courtiers feel this tension, even in the middle of a party. They watch the two of you, reading your interactions like soothsayers reading tea leaves. A warm smile from you to James, the Tories breathe a sigh of relief. A moment of coolness. A turned shoulder, the Whigs begin to whisper and hope. Your relationship is the political barometer of the nation. Historians are still divided on your true feelings in this matter. Did you protect James out of a deep-seated loyalty and a belief in the divine right of kings? The idea that God, not Parliament, chooses the monarch, or was it a more cynical calculation? A way to keep your own power secure by using your controversial brother as a lightning rod for discontent. The truth is lightning rod for discontent. The truth is likely a messy combination of both. You are a king after all. And in your world, love and politics are rarely separate things. Tonight, the tensions are buried beneath layers of politeness and courtly ritual. You raise your glass in a silent toast to your brother. He nods back, his expression unreadable. For now, the peace holds. The music continues to play, the wine continues to flow, and the unspoken anxieties are pushed to the back of every earnest mind. But they haven't gone away. They are just waiting in the wings like your physicians, ready to rush onto the stage the moment the main actor falters. The party slowly winds down. The musicians pack away their instruments, their soft melodies replaced by the gentle murmur of departing guests. The great clock in the hall chimes. It is Sunday, February 1st, 1685. It's the last night you will ever feel truly well, but of course, you have no sense of this. The future is a closed book. For you, this is just another pleasant, unremarkable Sunday evening coming to a close. You retreat from the grand public spaces back into the relative privacy of your personal apartments. Here, the number of people shrinks, but you are never truly alone. A few trusted servants move quietly, preparing your bed, turning down the heavy damask sheets. Your dogs, who have been patiently waiting, now swarm around you, tails wagging, their paws clicking softly on the polished wood floors. You scratch a few ears, your long, elegant fingers sinking into their soft fur. Uncomplicated affection, a welcome relief after a day of performing kingship. Your brother James is there, sharing a final, quiet glass of wine with you. The political animal in you never sleeps, and these informal moments are often where the real work gets done. You talk about the day's news, a new dispatch from your ambassador in France, a minor squabble overland between two powerful earls. You navigate the conversation with your usual deftness, reassuring James of your support, while gently steering him away from his more extreme, hardline positions. It's a dance you've been doing for years. Then the conversation turns, as it often does, to your other great passion clocks. You are a genuine horological enthusiast. Your palaces are filled with them. You love the intricate machinery, the mathematical precision, the way they impose a rational, predictable order on the chaos of time. You and James might disagree on God, but you can find common ground in gears and pendulums. You show him a new pocket watch you've acquired, its gold case exquisitely engraved. You pop it open, admiring the delicate movement inside. There is a comfortable, familiar silence as you both appreciate the craftsmanship. As you get ready for bed, you might pause and look at your reflection in the large, silver-backed mirror. The face looking back at you is long and dark, with heavy-lidded eyes and a prominent nose, a face you once described yourself as being unfashionably black. It's not a conventionally handsome face, but it is a memorable one, etched with the lines of 50 for years of laughter, worry, and indulgence. You look healthy. Your color is good. Your eyes are clear. There is absolutely no warning sign of the biological cataclysm that is about to unfold inside your own skull. It's this complete lack of premonition that makes what happens next so shocking. Historians, looking back with the benefit of hindsight, have scoured the records for any clue you might have been unwell. Did you complain of a headache? Did you seem unusually tired? The accounts are unanimous. You were in excellent spirits and, by all appearances, in robust health. You ate a good supper, perhaps a bit too good, as was your habit, and drank your usual amount of wine. Nothing was out of the ordinary. There's a small, almost trivial detail from that night that has been preserved in the historical record. As you were winding down, you made a point of personally winding the many clocks in your bedchamber. It was a nightly ritual, a small, satisfying act of control. You moved from one to the next, the quiet clicks of the winding keys a soothing sound in the still room. There's a strange poignancy to this image, you, the master of time in your own small kingdom of machines, just hours away from your own time running out. The academic debate here is a subtle one. Was this clock winding a sign of a slightly obsessive, anxious personality, a man trying to impose order on an unruly world, or was it simply the hobby of a curious and engaged mind? Finally, you dismiss the last of your attendants. The door to your bedchamber is closed, leaving you in the quiet intimacy of the vast curtained bed. Your Queen Catherine is likely in her own adjacent chambers. Your marriage is a complex and often distant one, but it is a source of quiet stability. The spaniels settle down on their own cushions at the foot of your bed, their soft snores joining the gentle ticking of your beloved clocks. The palace of Whitehall falls silent. The city of London sleeps. The entire kingdom lies in a state of peaceful ignorance. The fire in your hearth burns down to glowing embers. Everything is as it should be. The world feels safe, stable, and predictable. And for the last time in your life it is. The first light of Monday morning is still a pale, grey promise in the sky when your routine begins. The ritual of the King's Day starts early, long before the courtiers are invited in for the public spectacle of the levee. A personal servant, a barber, enters the quiet bedchamber. His name is William Chiffinch, but he's more than just a servant. He's your confidant, your fixer, the keeper of your many secrets. He moves with a quiet familiarity, accustomed to the dim light and the soft snores of the royal spaniels. The plan for the morning is simple, the same as any other Monday. You'll be shaved, you'll get dressed, and then you'll take your customary brisk walk in the park before the real business of the day begins. You sit in a velvet upholstered armchair while Chiffinch prepares the hot water and sharpens his razor. The room is still, wrapped in the hush of the pre-dawn hours. The only sounds are the gentle crackle of a newly lit fire and the swish of the razor against a leather strap. You are sitting there, a cloth draped over your shoulders, your head tilted back slightly. Chiffinch is lathering your face with a soft brush. And then it happens. Without a word, without any warning at all, your body convulses. A violent, uncontrolled shudder wrecks your entire frame. Your eyes roll back in your head, showing the whites. A strangled cry, a sound no one in the room has ever heard you make before, escapes your lips. Your jaw clenches with terrifying force. You slump sideways in the chair, your limbs twitching, completely unresponsive. Chiffinch freezes, razor in hand, his face a mask of pure terror. For a moment, the room is locked in a state of suspended shock. The king, the vibrant, witty, indestructible center of their universe, has collapsed. He looks like a puppet whose strings have just been cut. The silence is shattered by the barber's panicked shout for help. The cry ripples outwards from the bedchamber, a shockwave of pure panic. Doors are thrown open. Servants, half-dressed and wide-eyed, come running. The news spreads through the private apartments of Whitehall Palace with the speed of fire. The king is ill. The king has fallen. The carefully managed order of the palace dissolves into chaos. Your brother James, awakened by the commotion, is one of the first to arrive. He finds you on the floor now, surrounded by a small, helpless-looking group of attendants. You are still breathing, but it's a harsh, ragged sound. A thin line of foam flecks your lips. James, the man not given to emotional displays, is visibly shaken. He kneels beside you, calling your name, but there is no response. The man who just last night was sharing jokes and admiring clocks is gone, replaced by this shuddering, unconscious stranger. In this moment of crisis, a nobleman named Lord Howard of Essex, who happened to be nearby, pushes his way through the stunned onlookers. He has the presence of mind to do something. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small, ornate snuff box. He forces your clenched jaw open. A difficult and dangerous ask and shoves a large pinch of acrid, powerful snuff up your nostrils. The idea, common at the time, is that a violent sneeze might be enough to jolt your system back into working order. But there is no sneeze. There is no reaction at all. This event, this sudden catastrophic seizure, is the central medical mystery of your story. What was it? Modern neurologists and historians have debated this endlessly. The most common theory is that you suffered a massive stroke, a cerebrovascular accident, caused by a blood clot reaching your brain. Another popular theory, based on the final symptoms you would later develop, points to uremia, a severe kidney failure where toxins build up in the blood, eventually poisoning the brain. This is one of those questions where history can only offer educated guesses. There were no brain scans in 1685. All your doctors saw was a terrifying, inexplicable event. They called it apoplexy, a catch-all term for any sudden loss of consciousness. The panic in the room is now thick enough to taste. The most powerful man in the kingdom is lying helpless on the floor, and no one knows what to do. The ticking of the clocks you so carefully wound last night now seems to mock the stillness of your body. Each tick is a second of your life slipping away. The corridor's out for the people everyone believes can fix this. The call echoes down the corridors of the palace, carried by terrified servants. Fetch the physicians. For God's sake, fetch the king's physicians. They are coming. And they are about to make everything so much worse. The physicians arrive in a flurry of dark cloaks and grave expressions. Their faces a mixture of professional concern and sheer, undisguised panic. Sir Charles Scarborough, your chief physician, leads the charge. He is followed by a team of at least a dozen other doctors, each one a respected member of the Royal College of Physicians. They push their way through the gawking, whispering courtiers who have now crowded into your chambers, transforming your private space into a public theatre of dread. They see you lying on a hastily prepared mattress on the floor. You are still unconscious, your breathing shallow. Scarborough wastes no time. In his mind, guided by the unwavering logic of humoral theory, the diagnosis is obvious. A sudden violent collapse like this, an apoplectic fit, can only be caused by one thing: a massive excess of a humor, in this case blood, which has rushed to your head, putting pressure on your brain and vital spirits. The cause is clear, is equally clear and brutally direct. The pressure must be relieved. The excess blood must be removed. Immediately. There is no debate. There is no hesitation. An assistant steps forward, unrolling a leather case of polished steel instruments. He selects a lancet, a small, sharp, pointed blade designed for one purpose. Another assistant ties a strip of silk tightly around your upper arm, making the veins stand out, blue and prominent against your pale skin. Someone holds a basin. It's not a medical basin, but a beautiful silver one, probably taken from a nearby washstand. No one cares about the details. Scarborough himself, his face set in a grim mask of determination, takes the lancet. He leans over you. There is a moment of taut silence, broken only by your ragged breathing and the soft weeping of one of your attendants. Then, with a quick, practiced movement, he plunges the blade into the prominent vein in the crook of your elbow. Your blood, the royal blood, spurts out. It's a shocking, vivid crimson against the white of your nightshirt and the pale silver of the basin. The doctors watch the flow intently, like priests observing a sacred rite. They are aiming for a specific, shockingly large amount. Their goal is to remove at least 16 ounces of blood in this first sitting. To put that in perspective, a modern blood donation is about 16 ounces. Taking a full donation's worth of blood from a man who has just suffered a massive neurological trauma. This practice, bloodletting or phlebotomy, is the absolute cornerstone of 17th century medicine. It was used for everything from fevers to melancholy to, in your case, seizures. The belief was that it would not only relieve pressure but also carry away the PEC count of the blood that were causing the illness. To refuse to bleed a patient in your condition would have been seen as gross negligence, as medical malpractice of the highest order. Yet, even at the time, there were whispers of dissent, though they were rarely voiced in a crisis. This is a fascinating point that historians of medicine love to explore: the conflict between established dogma and emerging evidence. While the medical elites swore by bloodletting, some battlefield surgeons and provincial doctors were beginning to notice that soldiers who weren't bled for their wounds often recovered better. But these were just scattered observations, anecdotal evidence against a 1,000-year-old tradition. In the king's bedchamber, surrounded by the most learned men in London, there was no room for such heretical ideas. As the silver basin fills, a few of the courtiers in the room turn away, their faces green. Even in an age accustomed to casual brutality, there is something deeply unsettling about seeing the king, their seemingly invincible monarch, being so violently unclinically drained. Your brother James watches, his face a stony mask, trusting the experts. Trusting the experts, trusting the experts, trusting the science of his day. He wants to save you. They all want to save you. The blood flows. The physicians nod, their faces showing a grim satisfaction. They are not being cruel. In their minds, they are being heroic. They are fighting the disease, battling the unbalanced humors that have seized you. They are attacking the enemy within. They look at the basin filling with your life force and see a victory. They believe they have just taken the first, decisive step toward pulling you back from the brink of death. The bloodletting, as dramatic as it was, is only the opening act. Your physicians believe they are fighting a war on multiple fronts. Removing the excess blood from your arm was a good start, but the true seat of the problem, they reason, is your head. The apoplexy originated in your brain, so the treatment must be focused there, with a terrifying and painful intensity. They need to draw the bad humors and the vile vapors away from this critical organ. Their method for this is called blistering, or vesiculation. The theory is that by creating a severe irritation on the surface of the skin, you can draw the deeper evils out. It's a bit like creating a controlled, therapeutic wound to distract from the real one. An assistant steps forward with a small pot of thick, dark paste. This is a blistering agent, a caustic concoction likely made from cantiaceride, more commonly known as Spanish fly. It's a powder made from dry, crushed beetles that is a powerful irritant. But first, they need access to your scalp. The long, dark, curly hair that you are famous for, the hair that is part of your iconic image, has to go. A servant comes forward, not with a barber's care but with the grim efficiency of a sheep shearer. He hacks off your locks, letting them fall to the floor in messy clumps. Then your head is shaved completely bald. The merry monarch, the icon of style and swagger, is now exposed, vulnerable, his bare scalp gleaming pale in the morning light. Now the real work begins. One of the physicians takes a spatula and begins to slather the foul-smelling, blistering plaster all over your newly shaved head. The goal is to produce a massive, angry, weeping blister across your entire scalp. But this is not enough. The treatment needs to be more aggressive, more immediate. Another doctor calls for hot irons, not the branding irons used for cattle, but smallest medical tools called cauteries. They are heated in the chamber's fireplace until they glow a dull, menacing red. The smell of hot metal fills the air, adding another layer to the already thick atmosphere of sickness and fear. Then, with you still lying unconscious, they press the searing hot metal to the skin of your head. The hiss of your skin burning, the horrific smell of it, makes several onlookers gasp and stumble out of the room. It's a brutal, almost medieval procedure. The idea is twofold. First, the intense pain is thought to have a chance of shocking you back to consciousness. Second, the burn itself is another way to draw out the deep humors, a vent for the cerebral pressure they imagine is building up inside your skull. This isn't the end of their assault on your head. They also apply something called cupping. An assistant takes small glass or metal cups, places a piece of burning linen or alcohol-soaked cotton inside to consume the oxygen, and then quickly inverts the cup onto your skin, usually on your neck and shoulders. As the air inside the cup cools, it creates a powerful vacuum, sucking your skin up into the cup with immense force. It leaves behind a perfect circle, a deep purple, painful well. They do this again and again, covering your upper back and neck with these angry circular bruises. To them, each dark mark is a sign of success, a visible trophy of the bad blood they have drawn to the surface. There is a strange and sad historical irony here. While your doctors are burning and blistering your scalp to release pressure, the real problem inside your cranium, likely swelling or bleeding from the stroke, is something that would, centuries later, be treated by surgically relieving pressure. They had the right general idea: pressure in the head is bad, but their method for dealing with it was a world away from effective treatment. It's a tragic case of a near miss in medical logic. The debate among historians here is not about if this happened. The court records are chillingly specific, but about the psychological effect on the people in the room. How could they stand by and watch this? The answer lies in the power of medical authority. These physicians, with their Latin terms and air of absolute certainty, were the experts. To question their methods would be like questioning a pilot's ability to fly a plane while you're in mid-air. Your servants, they were all terrified spectators, trusting that this horrific, violent process was the only path to your salvation. They watched the smoke rise from your skin and prayed that the cure was working. Having waged war on your blood and your head, your medical team now turns its attention to another front: your digestive system. According to their humoral theory, your body is not just full of excess blood, it's also likely clogged with corrupted bile and phlegm. These bad humors are stagnant, poisoning your system from the inside. They must be expelled, violently. This marks the beginning of a full-scale top-to-bottom internal cleansing. The attack from the top comes first. One of the physicians, the specialist in pharmacology, steps forward with a small vial of a carefully prepared liquid. This is an emetic, a powerful substance designed to make you vomit. The recipes for these were complex and, to our modern sensibilities, horrifying. They often contained ingredients like antimine, a toxic metalloid that irritates the stomach lining. You are, of course, still unconscious, so getting you to swallow is a challenge. They pry your jaw open again. It's a grim, awkward process. Someone has to hold your head at just the right angle while the physician carefully pours the harsh liquid down your throat, a little at a time, stroking your neck to encourage you to swallow reflexively. There is a constant fear you might choke. To them, this is a necessary risk. The need to purge the bad humors outweighs the danger of the procedure itself. They manage to get the dose down. Now they wait for the inevitable convulsive result. Simultaneously, they prepare an assault from the other direction. While the emetic is meant to clear the upper tract, a powerful purgative is needed for the lower. Another physician mixes a new concoction. This one is a brutal blend of cathartic herbs like senna and rhubarb mixed with other, stronger compounds. The goal is not gentle relief, but a rapid, almost explosive evacuation of the bowels. Again, the challenge is administering it to you. They mix it into a drink and, using the same forceful method, make you swallow it. But they aren't content to just wait for the laxative to work its way through your system. They need a more direct and immediate approach. This means an enema, or as they called it, a sea lister. This was a standard, almost daily, procedure in 17th century medicine, used for all manner of ailments. The instrument itself was a large, syringe-like device with a long nozzle. The mixtures they used could be incredibly complex. A common one was called the holy bitter, containing rock salt, herb, and other ingredients, all mixed in hot water or wine. The procedure is carried out with a strange mix of clinical detachment and public spectacle. Your royal person is turned onto your side, the bedclothes pulled away, exposing you to the crowd of physicians, attendants, and horrified courtiers still crammed into the room. There is no concept of patient privacy here. Your suffering is a state affair. The sea lister is administered, then another. Throughout the day, this process will be repeated multiple times, a relentless internal scouring. This obsession with purging is a fascinating and bizarre aspect of the medicine of the era. Some historians argue that it reflects a deeper psychological or even religious mindset of the time, the idea that disease was a form of internal corruption or sin that had to be physically cast out. The body had to be purified through suffering. Sickness wasn't just a biological event, it had a moral dimension. By violently expelling the contents of your body, they were, in a way, performing a physical exorcism of the illness. This is also where we see a bit of a strange class divide in medicine. While wealthy patients like you could afford the exotic, specially prepared purgatives, a common person would be given much cruder, cheaper, and often more dangerous substances. The core belief, however, was the same: what is inside must come out. The result of all this is a scene of profound and miserable indignity. The king's bedchamber, once a symbol of power and luxury, is transformed into a place of biological chaos. The emetics and purgatives do their work. You, the king, are reduced to a helpless vessel, your body racked by involuntary convulsions from both ends. The physicians observe the results of their work with keen interest, studying the color and consistency of what you expel, looking for signs that the bad humors are finally being driven from their hiding places. They see this horrific mess not as a sign of your body failing, but as a sign of their treatment succeeding. They are, in their minds, winning the war. The assault on your body is relentless, a horrifically creative storm of treatments. Having bled you, burned you, blistered you, and purged you from both ends, your physicians are just getting started. As the hours wear on, and you fail to miraculously sit up and ask for a glass of wine, they don't reconsider their approach. They double down. If the standard treatments aren't working, they must move on to more potent, more exotic, and frankly, more desperate remedies. This is when your bedroom truly begins to resemble an alchemist's laboratory. One of your physicians, a man named Dr. Thomas Short, was a known champion of what was called IAT chemistry, a school of thought that tried to blend traditional alchemy with medicine. He believed that the body's functions were essentially chemical processes and that illness could be cured by introducing the right chemical substances. He now steps forward with a particularly grim prescription, one that has become infamous in the annals of medical history. He holds up a small, dark vial. Inside is a liquid known as King's Drops. It was a popular patent medicine of the time, invented by the royal chemist, but the key ingredient proposed now is something far more macabre. The vial contains 40 drops of an extract derived from a human skull. Let that sink in. You are about to be fed a medicine made from the powdered bones of another person's head. This was just a random, ghoulish impulse. There was a twisted logic behind it, a relic of ancient magical thinking dressed up as medicine. The skull, particularly the skull of a young man who had died a sudden, violent death, the preferred source, was believed to contain a powerful life-force or vital spirit. The idea was that this spirit lingered in the bones and, if ingested, could be transferred to the patient, reinforcing their own fading vitality. It was also thought to be a powerful treatment for neurological conditions like epilepsy and, in your case, apoplexy. Finding these skulls was a grim business, often involving transactions with executioners who had a ready supply of the desired material from the gallows. The preparation is made. The powder from a pulverized human cranium is distilled with alcohol or other spirits to create a potent tincture. And now this concoction is being forced down your throat. The men administering it are not ghouls or wizards. They are fellows of the Royal College of Physicians, the most educated medical minds in England. They are giving you a dose of distilled cannibalism with the same solemn gravity they applied the lancet. There is a fierce and ongoing debate among historians about the prevalence and acceptance of this kind of corpse medicine. Was it a fringe, last-ditch effort, or was it, as some evidence suggests, a surprisingly mainstream part of the 17th century pharmacy? The records from your bedside suggest it was taken very seriously indeed. It highlights the bizarre twilight world that 17th century medicine inhabited, a place where the emerging rational science you championed in your Royal Society coexisted with practices that belonged in a book of dark spells. You, the patron of science, are now a patient of something that feels very much like witchcraft. But the skull extract is just one item on the grotesque menu they have planned for you. Your mouth is pried open again and again, and a parade of other strange substances follows. You are given a dose of powdered pearl and amber, believed to have purifying and strengthening properties. You are fed extracts of Lily of the Valley, a plant that was thought to be good for the heart and brain. They pour elixirs containing everything from powdered peony root to mistletoe, another plant associated with treating seizures. Each dose is administered with a sense of urgent hope. Your doctors are like frantic chefs, throwing every ingredient they can find into the pot, praying that one of them will be the magic bullet. They are not following a single coherent plan. They are throwing the entire contents of the 17th century pharmacopoeia at you. A chaotic, desperate bombardment of herbs, minerals, and human remains. Through all of this, you remain mercifully unconscious. You are not aware of the ghoulish potions being forced into your body. You are not a participant in this bizarre ritual, merely the vessel for it. The only response from your body is the continued, grim work of the purgatives. Your system, already in catastrophic shock, is being flooded with an array of potent, confusing, and often toxic substances. The physicians, seeing no improvement, only redouble their efforts. If 40 drops of skull extract didn't work, perhaps the next dose will. As the hours bleed into one another, the atmosphere in your bedchamber grows more and more desperate. The initial confident wave of treatment has failed to produce any positive result. You haven't woken up. You haven't even stirred. This is when the physicians start to get truly creative, digging deep into the dusty, forgotten corners of their medical knowledge. The human-derived medicines have failed, so now they turn to the animal kingdom for answers. Your room is about to become the site of a truly bizarre, zoo-based therapy session. One of the more respected, if strangest, items in the 17th century medical chest is the bezoar stone. This isn't really a stone at all, but a hard, dense mass found in the digestive tract of certain animals, most commonly goats, but also llamas or deer. It's formed from layers of calcium and phosphate that build up around a small, indigestible object, like a piece of hair or a seed. They are rare, expensive, and believed to be a universal antidote to poison. The logic was that if an animal could live with this stone inside it, the stone must have powerful protective properties. A precious bezoar stone, likely from the royal apothecary, is brought forth. It's a smooth, dark, ovoid object that looks a bit like a large, polished pebble. It feels cool and heavy in the hand. Possessing one was a status symbol, a piece of medical insurance for the ultra-wealthy. And now, it's being used on you. A small piece is scraped off, creating a fine powder. This powder is mixed with wine or water and, like everything else, is painstakingly poured down your unconscious throat. The doctors watch your face, half expecting the miraculous stone to neutralize the poisons of your illness and make use it bolt upright. Nothing happens. The failure of the bezoar stone seems to open the floodgates to even more outlandish zoological treatments. The guiding principle seems to be, if it's rare, disgusting, or comes from a powerful animal, it might just work. The records of what they gave you read like a witch-ish shopping list. They try a concoction made from powdered snake root, believing that the essence of a creature that can shed its skin might help you shed your illness. They force-feed you medicine containing shavings of an owl tusk, which was universally believed to be the horn of a unicorn and, therefore, a powerful purifying agent. The fact that you, a patron of science, had a narwhal tusk in your own collection of curiosities is a perfect example of the strange contradictions of the age. But it gets worse. The physicians, in their desperation, turn to one of the most common and easily sought medical ingredients available in a 17th century city: animal excrement. This wasn't seen as unhygienic, it was seen as potent. The dung of specific animals was thought to have specific therapeutic properties, often related to the animal's perceived characteristics. A popular and well-documented treatment of the time, and one almost certain made from pigeon droppings, mixed with herbs and spices, and applied hot to the soles of your feet. The sharp, acrid nature of the dung was believed to draw the sickness downwards, pulling the humours away from your afflicted brain. There's a small, almost comical academic debate about which animal products were used and in what order. Some accounts mention a plaster of rook's brains being applied to your head, while others focus on the use of extract of vipers. It's a grisly argument, but it highlights the sheer chaotic and improvisational nature of the treatment. They were, in essence, grabbing anything and everything from the natural world that had a reputation for potency, no matter how folkloric or absurd. Imagine the scene. The King of England, lying bald and unconscious, his head burned and blistered, his body racked by purges, is now having his feet slathered in a hot paste of bird droppings while being fed potions made from goat stomach stones and mythical sea creatures. It sounds like a scene from a dark fairy tale, but for the men in the room, it was the peak of medical intervention. They were not trying to be cruel or bizarre, drawn from the earth, the sea, and the sky. They were fighting for your life with every tool at their disposal, no matter how strange or repulsive it might seem to us today. Their desperation had completely eclipsed their judgment, leading them down a path of therapeutic madness. While this storm of medical intervention is raging around your prone body, another, quieter drama is unfolding in the room. Your bedchamber is no longer a medical space or a private room, it has become the pulsing, terrified heart of the entire kingdom. The news of your collapse has spread through the palace and is now seeping into the streets of London. And according to the strict, almost theatrical rules of court etiquette, high-ranking officials and nobles have the right and the duty to be present at significant royal events. And this, the potential death of the king, is the most significant event of all. So the room is packed. It's not just the dozen or so physicians and their assistants, not just your brother James and a handful of personal servants. Now, dozens of other people are crammed into the space, all trying to get a look. There are the great officers of state, the Lord Chancellor, the Lord Treasurer, various secretaries of state. There are powerful aristocrats, dukes and earls, the men who hold the real power in the country. Their purple robes adding another splash of color to the grim scene. There are foreign ambassadors, their faces etched with a mixture of sympathy and intense professional calculation, already composing dispatches in their heads to send back to their own kings. The air is thick with the smells of fear, sickness, hot metal, and the strange chemical tang of the various medicines. But it's also thick with perfume, sweat, and the damp wool of so many bodies pressed together. The room is hot and suffocating, and it is not quiet. Despite the gravity of the situation, it's filled with a constant, low hum of human activity. People are whispering, their voices a soft sibilance of speculation and gossip. Did you see what they did to his head? Is it poison? Do you think what will happen if he doesn't experience? You, the king, are the center of this bizarre, impromptu theater piece, but you are also just a prop. The real action is in the glances being exchanged over your head. This is politics at its most raw. Every person in that room has a stake in the outcome. The Tories who support your brother James, watch his face, looking for signs of strength and resolve. The Whigs, or those who secretly sympathize with them, are trying to gauge the new landscape, who will be in favor if you die, who will be out fortunes, careers, and even lives hang in the balance. A man's proximity to your bed is a public statement of his importance. To be in the room is to matter. To be shut out is a political death sentence. This tradition of public royal deathbeds is a strange and long-standing one. Historians have often debated its function. On one level, it was a practical matter the powerful needed to witness the death of the monarch to ensure there was no foul play and that the succession was legitimate. There could be no doubt that the king was truly dead, but on another level, it was about power. It was a visible demonstration of the continuity of the state. The government didn't cease to exist just because the king's body was failing. The silent, watchful presence of the ministers and nobles was a testament to that. One of the more peculiar and documented aspects of this crowded vigil is the sheer noise and disruption. The physicians are trying to work, shouting instructions over the murmur of the crowd. Servants are trying to push their way through with basins and fresh linen. At one point, your beloved dogs, the spaniels, are let into the room. They are confused by the crowd and the strange smells, whimpering and whining at the foot of your bed, adding their own notes of distress to the cacophony. Probably your distraught brother James has to order them to be taken away. So you are not dying in peace. You are dying in a crush of bodies, surrounded by the noise, the heat, and the barely concealed political anxieties of your court. Your last hours are not your own. They belong to the state. They are a public performance. Every procedure, every twitch of your unconscious body is observed, analyzed, and commented upon by a captive audience of the most powerful people in Britain. They watch the doctor's frantic, futile efforts, and in the space between the horrific treatments, they plan, they plot, and they pray, some for your recovery, and some perhaps for the dawn of a new era. Sometime in the late afternoon on Monday, a flicker, to the astonishment of everyone in the crowded, suffocating room, something changes. After hours of being completely inert, a mere object for the physician's brutal ministrations, you show a sign of life. Your eyelids flutter. A low groan escapes your lips. You begin to stir. A collective gasp ripples through the onlookers. The physicians lean in closer, their faces alight with triumphant hope. It's working. The skull extracts, it must be working. Slowly, miraculously, you regain a semblance of consciousness. The world swims back into your perception, not as a clear picture, but as a confusing, painful blur of faces and sounds. You are no longer in the peaceful, dark oblivion of the seizure. You are now present, and being present is agony. Your first sensation is a throbbing, searing pain that seems to encompass your entire head. It feels as if your scalp is on fire, a sensation created by the blistering agents from the cauterizing irons. Your throat is raw and parched, scraped by the tubes and harsh emetics they force down it. Your stomach is a knot of cramping misery from the purgative S. Your arms and shoulders ache from the bloodletting and the violent suction of the cupping glasses. Every inch of your body is a source of torment. You have been pulled from the void, not into healing, but into a world of pure, unadulterated pain. You try to speak, But only a hoarse whisper comes out. Your brother James leans in close, his ear next to your lips. You manage to utter a few words. The accounts of what you said differ slightly, but they all convey a sense of confusion and apology. You asked what was wrong, what had happened. You saw the distressed faces around you and, with the ingrained politeness of a lifetime, you apologized for being an unconscionable time a dying and for the trouble you were causing everyone. This brief return to consciousness is, for your doctors, a moment of supreme vindication. They see it as proof that their aggressive, interventionist approach was the right one. They have snatched you from the jaws of death. Their professional pride swells. They now feel emboldened to continue and even intensify their treatments to ensure the bad humors do not regain the upper hand. But was this brief rally a result of their treatments? This is a point of significant medical historical debate. The answer is almost certainly no. In fact, modern neurologists would argue that their cures were likely making your underlying condition much worse. The massive bloodletting would have lowered your blood pressure, reducing the flow of vital oxygen to your already damaged brain. The violent purges would have caused severe dehydration and electrolyte imbalances, putting immense strain on your heart and kidneys. It's far more likely that this period of lucidity was simply a natural fluctuation in your neurological state, a common occurrence in the aftermath of a stroke or seizure, as the brain temporarily fights its way through the swelling and trauma. You didn't wake up because of what they did, you woke up in spite of it. This brief, painful awakening is a double-edged sword. For the people in the room, it offers a glimmer of hope. Maybe the king will recover. Maybe the crisis will pass. But for you, it is arguably the cruelest part of the entire ordeal. Before, you were blessedly unaware. Now, you are a fully sentient participant in your own torture. You can feel the hot plasters on your feet. You can taste the foul, bitter medicines they continue to spoon into your mouth. You can feel the sharp prick of another lancet as they decide to bleed you again, this time from the jugular veins in your neck, to be closer to the source of the trouble. You are too weak to resist, too exhausted to do anything but endure. You lie there, trapped in a body that has become a prison of pain, surrounded by the faces of men who believe they are saving you, while every action they take pushes you closer to the end. The brief window of consciousness is not a sign of recovery. It's merely a prelude to the final decline, a last terrible moment of awareness before the darkness closes in for good. In the sea of anxious faces surrounding your bed, one stands out in its complexity: your brother, James, Duke of York. Throughout this entire ordeal, he has barely left your side. He holds your hand. He whispers words of encouragement. To most of the onlookers in the room, he is the very picture of a devoted, grief-stricken brother. And on one level, this is undoubtedly true. The bond between you, forged in the fires of civil war and exile, is real and profound. But in the suffocating atmosphere of the royal bedchamber, nothing is that simple. James is watching you die, and as he does so, the crown of England is hovering, almost visibly, just above his head. Every ragged breath you take is one breath closer to him becoming king. This is the terrible, unspoken truth in the room. His grief is inextricably tangled with the dawning reality of his own immense, new power. He is trapped in a paradox. The greatest tragedy of his personal life will be the moment of his greatest political triumph. His every action is scrutinized. When he weeps, as he does openly at several points, are they tears of genuine sorrow for a beloved brother, or are they the crocodile tears of a man performing the role of mourner for a critical audience? The historical accounts, mostly written by his supporters, portray him as sincerely devastated. But his enemies, the Whigs, would later paint a picture of a cold, ambitious man, barely able to conceal his impatience. Was likely a confusing, contradictory mess of both. You can imagine the thoughts racing through James's mind. For years he has been the political lightning rod, the controversial heir, the focus of plots and parliamentary maneuvering. His entire public identity has been defined by his relationship to you and his position as your successor. He has endured insults, threats, and attempts to legislate him out of existence. Now, in a matter of days or even hours, the fight will be over. He will no longer be the Duke of York, the problematic brother. He will be King James II, What kind of king will he be? This is the question on every earnest mind. You, with your charm and political dexterity, managed to keep the fractured kingdom stitched together. You knew when to bend, when to deftly play one faction against another. James possesses none of this subtlety. He is a man of rigid principle, convinced of his own righteousness and the divine authority of his position. He has seen your methods of compromise as a form of weakness. He plans to rule with a much firmer hand. As he watches the physician's brutal work, he doesn't question it. These are the accredited experts. But there's a deeper reason for his acceptance. The entire spectacle reinforces a worldview. He holds dear the idea of a king's body being a public, political entity. Your suffering is not a private matter. It is a state crisis, and its management is a public duty. He sees the doctor's violent interventions not as torture, but as a desperate, legitimate battle for the health of the realm, which is embodied in you. There is a fascinating and much debated historical question about James's role during this crisis. Did he, at any point, use the situation to his political advantage? For instance, he took control of the flow of information coming out of the sick room. He was the one who spoke to the Privy Council, who addressed the anxious courtiers, who approved the official bulletins about your health. He was, in effect, already acting as regent. Some historians see this as a natural and necessary step for the heir to take in a crisis. Others see it as a swift and calculated consolidation of power, a man seizing the reins even before they have fully slipped from your grasp. For now, he plays the part of the grieving brother perfectly. When you have your brief moment of lucidity, he is the one who leans in, who listens to your whispered apologies. He pats your hand and tells you to rest. He is a comforting presence, but behind the sad eyes and the gentle gestures, a new king is being forged in the heat of this crisis. He is watching the end of your reign and mentally preparing for the beginning of his. The tears he sheds are real, but they water the ground for the throne he is about to inherit. While the men of power, the politicians, the physicians, your brother are all crowded around your bed, a key figure is conspicuously absent from the inner circle: your wife, Queen Catherine of Braganza. She is in her own apartment nearby, locked in a state of frantic anxiety, receiving sporadic, second-hand news of your condition. In the rigid, male-dominated world of the 17th century court, the Queen's role in a political crisis like this was minimal. This was state business, was men's business. Her presence was seen as a potential emotional distraction, not a necessity. Her job was to wait, to pray, and to be ready to perform the role of the grieving widow. Your marriage to Catherine has been a long and complicated one. It was a political match from the start, designed to bring England a rich dowry, including the ports of Tangier and Bombay and a Catholic ally in Portugal. When she first arrived in England, a young, sheltered princess, she was met with the whirlwind of your notoriously promiscuous court. It was a culture shock from which she never fully recovered. You were not a faithful husband. To say you were unfaithful is a massive understatement. Your mistresses were famous, powerful figures in their own right. You had numerous children with them, children you acknowledged and showered with titles and wealth. Meanwhile, Catherine's greatest tragedy and her greatest failure in the eyes of the court was her inability to produce a legitimate heir. She suffered several miscarriages, each one a public and political disaster. Each failure to provide a successor only strengthened your brother James's position and fueled the anxieties of the kingdom. Yet, despite your constant infidelities, you developed a deep and abiding affection for Catherine. You consistently defended her against the vicious anti-Catholic sentiments of the court. During the so-called Popish plot, a fabricated conspiracy theory that whipped the country into a frenzy of anti-Catholic paranoia, Catherine herself was accused of plotting to poison you. Many powerful figures urged you to divorce her, to cast her aside and marry a Protestant who could give you an heir. You steadfastly refused. You stood by her, protected her, and publicly declared your belief in her innocence. It was perhaps the most honorable act of your reign. And now, at the end, she is kept at a distance. At one point, overcome with grief and desperation, she sends a message begging to see you. She is permitted a brief, carefully managed visit. She makes her way through the throng of onlookers, her face pale, her eyes red from weeping. She reaches your bedside, falls to her knees, and bursts into uncontrollable sobs. She is so overcome with grief that she faints and has to be carried from the room. Later, having recovered, she sends another message. This time, she is too distraught to even attempt another visit. Instead, she sends a messenger to beg your forgiveness if she has ever, in any way, offended you during your life together. When the message is relayed to you during one of your brief, painful moments of lucidity, you are reported to have whispered, "Alas, poor woman. She asks for my pardon, I beg hers with all my heart." This exchange is one of the most genuinely touching moments of your final days. It's a flash of real human emotion in the midst of a highly ritualized and political event. Historians have often highlighted this moment as revealing the true nature of your relationship, a bond that, despite its deep flaws and public humiliations, was founded on a bedrock of genuine mutual fondness and respect. But the poignancy of the moment also underscores her powerlessness. She can only communicate with you via messenger. She can only beg for forgiveness from a distance. The debate among historians is whether her exclusion was a calculated political act, keeping a potentially influential Catholic figure away from the dying king, or simply a matter of course, a reflection of the era's views on the role of women in affairs of state. It was likely a combination of both. While the physicians are torturing your body and the courtiers are mapping out the future, your wife, the Queen of England, is sidelined. Her claim is emotional and marital. The claims of the men in the room are political and constitutional. In this moment, the latter is all that matters. While the courtiers jostle for position and your wife grieves in isolation, a different kind of drama is playing out among the men in black robes. Your physicians, who at first presented a united front of aggressive confidence, are beginning to crack. As the days wear on with no sign of real improvement, your brief rally, having faded back into a state of semi-consciousness, panic begins to curdle into professional jealousy and disagreement. The bedchamber has become a pressure cooker. Their reputations, their royal appointments, and the very credibility of the medical profession are all on the line. And their patient, the most important man in the kingdom, is slipping away right before their eyes, seemingly in spite of their most powerful interventions. They start to second-guess each other. The united facade crumbles into hushed, bitter arguments in the corners of the room. Imagine the scene. While one group of doctors is preparing another foul-smelling plaster, two others are huddled by the window, their whispers sharp and urgent. The last bleeding was excessive, one might argue. We have taken far too much. It has weakened his vital spirits. The other might retort, nonsense. His feverish state clearly indicates a continued excess of blood. To stop now would be to surrender. We must be more vigorous. The core of their arguments would still be rooted in the language of humoral theory, but they would start to interpret the signs differently. Your pale skin and weak pulse could be seen by one doctor as evidence of a dangerous lack of blood, a sign that the bleeding has gone too far. Another, however, might interpret the exact same symptoms as proof that the bad humors are stubbornly resisting, meaning the treatments need to be even stronger. They are all looking at the same broken machine, but they are arguing about which levers to pull and with how much force. Sir Charles Scarborough, your chief physician, is trying to maintain order, but his authority is being challenged by other prominent doctors, like the aforementioned IA-tier chemist, Dr. Short, who believes the answer lies in more powerful chemical remedies, not in old-fashioned bleeding unpurging. He might argue for another dose of his distilled skull extract or for trying a new, more potent mineral compound. A more traditional Gaelnist physician would be horrified, believing these harsh chemical poisons were disrupting the natural balance they were trying so hard to restore. This is a classic clash of medical philosophies, all happening in real time at your bedside. It's the old school versus the new school, but in this context, both schools are tragically wrong. The debate isn't between a correct and an incorrect approach, it's between two different, equally harmful paths. It's like arguing whether it's better try and put out a fire with gasoline or with kerosene. Historians who study the medical records of your final days have to read between the lines to reconstruct these disputes. The official accounts, often written by Scarborough himself, tend to present a picture of unified, diligent chaotic application of treatments tell a different story. The rapid shift from one bizarre remedy to another, from bezoar stones to pigeon droppings, is not a sign of a coherent plan. It's a sign of desperation and disagreement. It suggests that when one doctor's preferred method failed to work, another would push forward with his own pet theory. You are the subject of a horrifying, real-time peer review process where every failed experiment just encourages a more extreme one. The political dimension of the court seeps into these medical arguments as well. Some of your physicians owed their appointments to one court faction, others to another. A doctor's success or failure in treating you could have real consequences for his patrons. They aren't just fighting for your life, they are also fighting for their own careers and the influence of the men who support them. The ultimate result of all this squabbling is that you are subjected to an even more bewildering and contradictory barrage of treatments. One moment, they are trying to cool you down with calming potions, the next, they are applying hot plasters to burn you. They bleed you to reduce your blood, then feed you to reduce your blood, then feed you strengthening broths and extracts to build you up. The logical coherence of even their own flood system has broken down, replaced by a throw everything at the wall and see what sticks approach. Your body has become a battlefield not just for your illness, but for the egos and competing theories of your own medical team. They came to save you as a unified force, but they will end up presiding over your demise as a fractured, squabbling committee. Let's leave the frantic, squabbling physicians for a moment and turn our attention inward, to the silent, catastrophic events happening inside your own body. While the doctors are focused on their external interventions, the bleeding, the blistering, the purging, your internal systems are staging a quiet, desperate, and ultimately losing battle. You have become a landscape of systemic failure. The initial event, the likely stroke or seizure, was the earthquake. But the treatments that followed were the tsunami, a relentless series of waves that have overwhelmed all of your body's natural defenses. Let's start with your circulation. Over the course of the first day or two, you have been bled of a staggering amount of blood. The records suggest they took at least 24 ounces, and likely more, in multiple sessions. For a man already in shock, this is catastrophic. Your blood pressure, which was probably already unstable, has plummeted. This means your heart is having to work harder and harder to pump a reduced volume of blood through your system. More importantly, this lack of blood volume and pressure means you are being starved of oxygen. Your brain, the very organ they are trying to save, is being deprived of the one thing it needs most to heal. The cells of the damaged area are dying, and the lack of oxygen is putting the surrounding, healthy brain tissue under immense stress. Your pale, clammy skin and the bluish tint to your lips and fingernails are the outward signs of this internal oxygen crisis. Now consider your kidneys. These vital organs are the body's filtration system, responsible for removing toxins and waste products from your blood and maintaining a stable balance of electrolytes, essential minerals like sodium and potassium. Your kidneys are now under a multi-pronged assault. The massive blood loss has reduced the flow of blood to them, a condition known as hypovolemia, which can cause acute kidney injury. At the same time, the violent purges and vomiting have caused severe dehydration, concentrating the toxins in your blood and putting even more strain on the filters. And then there are the medicines themselves. Many of the substances they have forced into you are directly toxic to the kidneys. The extracts from heavy metals, the bizarre chemical compounds your kidneys are struggling to process and excrete a flood of poisonous materials. The result is almost inevitable: your kidneys are shutting down. This is the condition known as uremia, which some modern historians believe was the ultimate cause of your death. The toxins that your kidneys should be removing are instead building up in your bloodstream, poisoning every organ in your body, including your brain and heart. This toxic buildup is what likely lead to the final coma and the tremors and convulsions that were yet to come. Your digestive system is a wasteland. Scoured by emetics and purgatives, the delicate lining of your stomach and intestines is inflamed and possibly bleeding. You are unable to absorb any real nutrients, even if they were being given to you. The strengthening broths they occasionally try to administer are useless, passing right through a system that is in a state of complete chaos. This brings us to one of the most debated questions among medical historians. Could you have survived the initial stroke if left alone? It's impossible to say for certain, of course. The initial seizure was clearly severe. but it is highly probable, almost certain, that you could not survive the treatment. The medical interventions took a serious but potentially survivable medical crisis and turned it into an inescapable catastrophe. Your body was not just fighting an illness, it was fighting your doctors. And it was a war on two fronts that no system could possibly win. The irony is that your physicians would have seen the signs of this systemic collapse, the weak pulse, the shallow breathing, the eventual kidney failure, not as a result of their own actions, but as a sign of the disease's terrifying power. When your body failed to respond, they didn't think, perhaps we are harming him. They thought, this disease is even stronger than we imagined, we must try something even more extreme. Each symptom caused by their treatment became a justification for more of the same. It was a perfect, deadly feedback loop of misguided intervention. You are trapped in a cascade of organ failure, a quiet, internal collapse that is far more deadly than the noisy, dramatic activities happening around your bed. By Wednesday, the third day of your ordeal, a new urgent problem arises for the men in charge. The drama in your bedchamber can no longer be contained within the palace walls. News of your grave illness has electrified London. Rumors are flying. Crowds are gathering outside Whitehall, their faces anxious, desperate for any scrap of information. The stability of the entire kingdom feels precarious. In an age without mass media, the king's health is a matter of public obsession, spread by word of mouth, pamphlets and newsletters. Your brother James and the Privy Council realize they are facing a political crisis as much as a medical one. The public needs to be reassured. The financial markets, yes, they had those are jittery. Foreign ambassadors are sending coded messages back to their governments, speculating on the impending chaos of a succession crisis. Something must be done to project an image of control and hope, even if the reality in the sick room is one of desperation and failure. This is the moment the official narrative is born. The decision is made to actively lie to the public. The Privy Council, with James's approval, begins to issue official bulletins to be read out in public places and sent to officials across the country. They are masterpieces of political spin. They are carefully worded to suggest that while your illness was indeed sudden and serious, you are now responding well to treatment. A typical bulletin might say something like His Majesty the King, having suffered a severe apoplectic fit, has, through the diligent and skillful application of his physicians, shown considerable improvement. His Majesty has recovered his senses and has spoken several times. The physicians have great hopes for a full recovery. This is, at best, a grotesque exaggeration built around the tiny kernel of truth of your brief, painful moment of lucidity. It conveniently omits the part where you lapsed back into a semi-comatose state. It doesn't mention the horrifying burns on your head, the non-stop purging, or the increasingly bizarre and desperate nature of the treatments. It certainly doesn't mention that the physicians are now arguing amongst themselves. It paints a picture of calm, methodical progress. These lies serve several purposes. Firstly, they are meant to quell public unrest and prevent panic. A recovering king means stability. Business can continue. People can go about their lives without fear of imminent political collapse. Secondly, it's a message to the kingdom's enemies both at home and abroad. It says, do not mistake this for a moment of weakness. The government is strong, the succession is secure, and everything is under control. The historical debate around this is fascinating. Was this a cynical, calculated deception, or was it a form of desperate wishful thinking? The men issuing these statements, did they actually believe them? Even partially, it's likely a bit of both. James, seeing your brief rally, may have clung to that as a genuine sign of hope. It's human nature to want to believe good news in a crisis, but the deliberate omission of all the negative details reveals a clear political strategy. They were managing the narrative, not just reporting the facts. The physicians themselves are complicit in this. For them to admit failure, or even uncertainty, would be unthinkable. Their public statements echo the official line. Yes, the king is doing better. Yes, the treatments are working. It protects their own reputations and reinforces the public's faith in the medical establishment. No one involved has any incentive to tell the unvarnished, terrifying truth. So, while you are lying in your bed, your body systematically shutting down, a fictional version of you is being presented to the world. This fictional king is brave, fighting back, and on the road to recovery. The gap between the grim reality in the chamber and the optimistic story being told outside widens with every passing hour. It's a strange dual existence. You are simultaneously dying in private and healing in public. The entire machinery of the state is now engaged in a massive, coordinated effort to deny the very reality that is unfolding in your own veins and arteries. It is a testament to the fact that for a king, even the act of dying is not a personal biological event, but a political fact to be managed, manipulated, and, if necessary, completely misrepresented. By Thursday, the fourth day, the fragile optimism manufactured for public consumption has all but evaporated within the confines of your bedchamber. The brief rally is a distant memory. You have sunk deeper into a coma, punctuated by worrying tremors and occasional, weak convulsions. Your breathing is shallow, your pulses are faint, tired why flutter. Even the most willfully optimistic of your physicians can see the end is near. They are losing, but they are not ready to give up. Desperate flourish of therapeutic imagination, they turn to one of the strangest and most pitiful treatments of the entire ordeal. Someone comes up with the idea of applying live, or very recently deceased, pigeons to your feet. This was as random as it sounds. It was a known, if extreme, remedy in the medical literature of the time, often referred to as pigeon soul. The practice was rooted in a concept known as transference. The belief was that a disease could literally be drawn out of a sick person and transferred into another living creature. Pigeons were often chosen for this purpose. The procedure is as grim as it is bizarre. Servants are sent to the palace of coats. They return with several live pigeons. One of the birds is taken. Its back is split open with a knife. It is cloven and the warm, bleeding carcass is immediately applied to the soles of your feet and bandaged in place. The theory was that the vital warmth of the freshly killed bird, combined with its perceived drying power, would act like a poultice, pulling the malignant vapors and morbid humors that were afflicting your brain all the way down through your body and out through your feet. The pigeon was, in essence, a disposable biological sponge meant to soak up your sickness. As one pigeon carcass cools, it is removed and replaced with another freshly killed one. This process is repeated over and over. The royal bedchamber, already a place of horrific smells, now adds the coppery scent of fresh blood and the faint, game-y odor of the birds to its nightmarish atmosphere. This treatment represents the absolute nadir of the physician's efforts. The moment where rational medicine, even the flawed rationalism of their own system, completely gives way to something that feels much more like folk magic or shamanic ritual. The scientific principles are almost non-existent. It's a purely symbolic act, a desperate attempt to physically pull the sickness out of you. Historians who specialize in the history of medicine and magic often point to practices like this as evidence of the blurry line between the two in the 17th century. While your doctors would have defended this with what they considered medical logic, drawing humors, transference, the underlying belief is ancient and primal. It's the idea of a scapegoat, of transferring sin or sickness onto another being. They are not just treating you, they are performing a ritual to exorcise the demon of your disease. What is particularly poignant about this moment is the contrast between the treatment and your own interests. You, the founder of the Royal Society, the man who delighted in rational mechanics and empirical observation, are now having your feet trapped in the entrails of a dead bird. It is the ultimate triumph of superstition over the very scientific spirit you tried to champion. The pigeon treatment, of course, does nothing. It is a useless, gruesome, and ultimately pathetic gesture. It is the last exhausted gasp of a medical system that has run out of ideas. There is nothing left in their arsenal. The cloven pigeons on your feet are a symbol of their utter and complete defeat. The air in the room begins to change, shifting from the frantic energy of a battle to the quiet, heavy stillness of a death watch. As the grim and useless ritual with the pigeons continues, a profound quiet begins to fall over the room. The frantic energy has dissipated, replaced by the heavy air of impending loss. The arguments among the physicians have ceased. They stand in weary, defeated silence, their dark robes making them look like somber birds of prey waiting for the inevitable. Through this fog of exhaustion and failure, something remarkable happens. You stir one last time. It is not the agitated rally of before. This is a much quieter, more lucid moment. Your eyes open, and for a short while, the haze of the coma lifts. You are weak, barely able to move, but your mind seems, for a few precious minutes, to be clear. You look around at the faces staring down at you, your brother James, the loyal courtiers who have stayed through the whole ordeal, the exhausted doctors. You see their sorrow, their fatigue, and then you speak. Your voice is a dry, faint rasp, but the words are perfectly formed, and they are not about your own pain or fear. Instead, with what seems to be the last of your strength, you turn your attention to them. You offer an apology. "I am sorry, gentlemen," you whisper, "for being such an unconscionable time a dying." The effect on the room is immediate and profound. Several of the hardened, cynical courtiers, men who have weathered political plots and battlefield dangers, break down in tears. Your brother James weeps openly. It is a moment of pure, unexpected grace. In an ordeal defined by its brutality and lack of dignity, you have, with a few words, restored a sense of humanity to the proceedings. This famous apology is one of the most quoted and analyzed deathbed statements in English history. What did it mean on the surface? It is a perfect expression of your lifelong persona. You are the merry monarch, the king of effortless charm and consideration, and you are maintaining that persona to the very end. It's an act of supreme politeness, apologizing to your audience for a poor performance, for taking too long to exit the stage. But historians have debated its deeper meaning. Is it a sign of your incredible resilience and self-control to be thinking of the comfort of others at such a moment, or is it something sadder, the apology of a man whose entire life has been a performance, who feels the need to please his audience even in the throes of death? Is it kindness, or is it the ultimate expression of a king who has never been allowed a truly private moment, who feels he owes even his death to the public? There is no single answer. It is likely all of these things at once. You are not finished. After the apology, you have a few practical concerns. You turn to your brother James and entrust to his care your mistresses, particularly the Duchess of Portsmouth and Nell Gwyn, one of your earliest and most beloved partners. You whisper to James, "Let not poor Nellie starve." It is a strikingly domestic and personal request in the midst of a state event. You are worried about the financial futures of the women you have loved and the children you have fathered. Even as the kingdom is about to pass into his hands, you are asking your brother to take care of your messy, complicated family. These final lucid words reveal so much about you. They show no great piety, no profound reflections on God or the afterlife. At least not yet. Instead, they show a deep concern for the people you are leaving behind and a sense of social obligation that transcends your own suffering. You are dying as you lived witty, considerate, and preoccupied with the very human, worldly affairs of those you cared for. This moment of clarity is brief. It is the last flash of the candle before it is extinguished. Soon after you speak these words, the light in your eyes begins to fade. The veil of confusion and unconsciousness descends again, this time for good. But you have left the witnesses with a powerful, unforgettable final impression. You have faced the end not with terror or complaint, but with a unique and strangely comforting gallantry. The physicians may have failed to save your body, but in these last moments, you have managed to save your own legacy. You are floating now, drifting away from the shore of consciousness. The faces at your bedside blur and fade. The sound of weeping becomes a distant hum, like the sea. The pain in your head and the fire in your feet are receding. You are unaware of the apology you just made, unaware of the tears you caused to fall. You are simply leaving. But your brother James is not yet ready to let you go. There is one final, secret, and monumentally dangerous piece of business to attend to. For your entire reign, you have lived a public life governed by a state religion. You are the supreme governor of the Protestant Church of England. It is the foundation of your throne. But James, and perhaps only James, knows the secret of your heart. Hidden corners of your soul, you have always leaned toward the old faith. The Catholic faith of your mother, your wife, and the faith you secretly promised to embrace in exchange for French gold and political support years ago. James knows that for you to die without the final rites of the Catholic Church would be, in your own eyes, to die an incomplete death, to face eternity without the proper spiritual passport. and he will not let that happen. It is his last, most perilous brotherly duty. The risk is immense. If it becomes known that a Catholic priest was brought to your deathbed, it would be a political earthquake. It would confirm every paranoid Protestant fear about you and your family. It would be seen as a final, posthumous betrayal of your kingdom. It would pour fuel on the fire of anti-Catholic hatred and make James's own accession to the throne 1,000 times more difficult. But for James, this is a matter of your eternal soul. He moves with quiet urgency. The first person he turns to is the French ambassador, Barillon, a man he trusts. In a hushed, frantic whisper, he explains the situation and asks him to fetch one of Queen Catherine's Portuguese priests. Barillon rushes off, but returns with bad news. The Queen's priests are in a panic. They're too well known, their foreign accents too distinct. They fear being caught and executed for treason, and their presence would be an instant giveaway. Time is running out, your breathing is becoming shallower. James is desperate. He confers with one of his loyal courtiers, the Earl of Feversham, who racks his brain. And then, a name emerges from the past, a name that carries with it a deep and personal history for you. Father John Huddleston. This is a name you would recognize, even in your deepest coma. Decades ago, after your catastrophic defeat at the Battle of Worcester, you were a fugitive in your own kingdom with a massive bounty on your head. You spent 6 weeks on the run, famously hiding in an oak tree at one point. During that desperate time, it was Father Huddleston who sheltered you, who risked his own life to hide you from the parliamentary forces that were hunting you. He saved your life. Now, in a moment of beautiful, poignant symmetry, he is being called to save your soul. The plan is put into motion with the stealth of a conspiracy. James uses his newfound authority. He addresses the crowd in the bedchamber, announcing that you need absolute quiet to rest. He orders everyone to withdraw from the immediate vicinity of the bed to stand back in the antechamber rest. He clears the room, leaving only himself, the loyal Earl of Feversham, to stand guard at the door, and one other Protestant lord, so they have a witness who can attest no political treason took place. Then Father Huddleston is smuggled into the palace through a back staircase, the same network of private passages you so often used for your own secret aimers. He is an old man now, dressed not in priest's vestments, but in an ordinary cloak and wig to avoid suspicion. He is brought into the silent, candlelit space around your bed. The priest leans down close to you. He knows you cannot give a full confession. He speaks softly, asking if you are sorry for your sins, if you wish to die in the faith and communion of the Catholic Church. He tells you that if you do, you should give a signal squeeze of the hand, a movement of the eyes. The onlookers hold their breath. It is impossible to know if you hear him, if you understand. But those present would later swear that you made a small, almost imperceptible gesture of assent. That is enough. Father Huddleston pronounces the words of absolution, freeing you from your sins. He anoints you with holy oil. And then he performs the most crucial rite of all. He places a consecrated host, the Eucharist, in your mouth. You have received the viaticum, the final communion for the journey into death. Was this the final admission of a lifetime of hidden faith, the culmination of a long, secret spiritual journey, or was it the last pragmatic act of a king securing comfort for his brother, and a final just-in-case policy for his own soul? It is a question historians have debated for centuries. There is no definitive answer. The secret ritual is over in minutes. Father Huddleston is quickly and quietly smuggled back out of the palace, melting back into the London night. The courtiers are allowed to filter back into the room. They see nothing amiss. They do not know that the most significant act of your entire deathbed has just taken place in their brief absence. Your brother James stands by your bed, his face calm. He has done it. He has fulfilled his promise. Now, and only now, can he let you go. The secret ceremony is over. The last rites have been administered. A strange sense of finality settles over the room. The frantic energy of the past for days has given way to a quiet, somber vigil. The physicians have stepped back, their bags of tricks finally empty. The courtiers stand in silent, weary groups. There is nothing left to do but wait for the end. And still you linger. Your body, though ravaged and failing, clings to life with a stubborn tenacity. Your breathing is a shallow whisper. Your heart beats a slow, faint rhythm. You are suspended in the final twilight, no longer truly present but not yet gone. This final, drawn-out stage of dying is, in its own way, the most agonizing part for those who are watching. The crisis is over, the drama has peaked, and what is left is a slow, painful fade. It is in this quiet, heavy atmosphere that a single voice rises in protest. It is not one of the great dukes or powerful ministers. It is a nobleman of a somewhat lesser rank, a man who has been a long-time courtier and friend. He has stood by for days, watching the horrific spectacle of your treatment. He has seen the bleeding, the branding, the purging, the pigeons. He has held his tongue, respecting the authority of the royal physicians. But now, he can bear it no longer. One of the doctors, perhaps out of sheer habit or an unwillingness to admit complete defeat, makes a move to administer one last futile dose of some herbal concoction. Seeing this, the nobleman finally breaks. He steps forward, his face streaked with tears, his voice choked with a mixture of grief and outrage. He turns to the physicians, but his plea is for everyone in the room. "For God's sake, gentlemen," he cries out, "let the king die in peace." His words hang in the air, a shocking, emotional outburst that cuts through the suffocating formality of the court. He has said what many in the room were likely thinking but dared not express. He has given voice to the simple, human desire to let a suffering man find his end without further torment. This moment is a crucial turning point in the narrative of your death. It is the first time anyone has explicitly framed the physician's actions not as treatment, but as a disturbance of your peace. It is an acknowledgement, finally, that their efforts are no longer helpful, that they have crossed a line from healing to harassment. The physicians, for the first time, have no response. They are silenced, not by a royal command, but by a simple, heartfelt plea. The nobleman's cry has broken the spell of their authority. They quietly put away their instruments on their potions. There will be no more cures. The war on your body is officially over. Historians have often pointed to this moment as a flicker of a more modern sensibility about death and dying. In an age where doctors were expected to fight until the very last second, to be seen to be doing something no matter how futile, this plea for a peaceful end is startling. It's a recognition that sometimes the most compassionate act is to do nothing. It prioritizes the patient's comfort over the physician's pride. The identity of this nobleman is a matter of some historical debate. Some accounts name him as the Earl of Aylesbury, a loyal gentleman of the bedchamber. Others suggest it was another courtier. In a way, his specific identity doesn't matter. He represents the voice of common sense and compassion, a voice that has been drowned out for fraud and brutal medical science. His plea grants you the only mercy you have received in this entire ordeal, the mercy of being left alone. For the final hours of your life, you are no longer a medical experiment. You are no longer a vessel for bizarre concoctions or a battlefield for dueling medical theories. You are simply a man dying. The room becomes stiller. The only sounds now are the soft weeping of those around you and the faint, ragged whisper of your own breath. The crowd thins out slightly, the political vultures sensing that the final act will be a quiet one. A small, core group of loyal friends and your brother James remain, gathered closely around your bed. They are no longer watching a medical procedure. They are accompanying a soul on its final journey. The lung torture has ended. The peace they have been so desperately praying for is at last allowed to descend upon the room. Friday, February 6th, 1685. The sun rises over London, casting a weak, wintry light for the tall windows of Whitehall Palace. It illuminates the dust motes dancing in the still air of your bedchamber and falls across the pale, unmoving form on the great bed. It is the 5th day since your collapse. The long night of waiting is about to end. The scene around you is one of exhaustion. The candles that have been burning for days have been snuffed out, replaced by the grey morning light. The courtiers who remain are slumped in chairs or leaning against the tapestries, their fine clothes rumpled, their faces etched with fatigue. The physicians stand apart, a silent, defeated conclave. All the frantic energy is gone. Your brother James sits by your side, holding your hand. It is cool to the touch. He watches your chest, watches the barely perceptible rise and fall. He has not slept. He has watched you all night, his mind a whirlwind of grief for the brother he is losing and immense, terrifying preparation for the kingdom he is about to gain. Around mid-morning, the final change begins. The shallow, rhythmic pattern of your breathing falters. It becomes irregular, a series of quick, soft breaths followed by a long, unnerving pause. This is the sound known grimly as the death rattle, a sign that the body's most basic, autonomic functions are shutting down. Each pause stretches longer than the last. The people in the room find themselves holding their own breath, waiting for the next one, which comes with less and less certainty. Your face, which had been tense with the pain of the treatments, has relaxed into a smooth, waxy stillness. All the character, the wit, the worry that was etched into your features over 53 years has been smoothed away. You look like a stone effigy of yourself. The grey clock in the corner, one of the many you so loved, chimes the hour. It strikes 11, then it strikes the half hour. The relentless, mechanical marking of time is a stark contrast to the stuttering, failing biological clock beside it. James leans in closer. He can feel the faint flutter of your pulse under his fingers growing weaker, more erratic. He nods silently to one of the bishops, who begins to recite the prayers for the dying. The soft Latin words fill the quiet room, a final, solemn soundtrack. And then, just before noon, it stops. There is one last, soft exhalation of air, and then nothing. No next breath comes. A profound, absolute stillness descends. The faint, fluttering pulse beneath your brother's fingers is gone. The chest does not rise again. In the silence, one of the physicians steps forward. He performs the final grim duties. He leans down with a feather, holding it to your lips to see if it stirs. It does small, polished mirror and holds it to your mouth, looking for the telltale sign of condensation. The surface remains perfectly clear. He straightens up and looks at your brother. He doesn't need to say the words. Everyone knows. Charles II, King of England, Scotland, and Ireland is dead. The spell of the death watch is broken. A courtier, following ancient protocol, steps to the window and raises a hand. It is a signal to the guards and officials waiting in the courtyard below. The news will now spread, officially and irreversibly. Inside the room, the contained grief of the past few days breaks its dam. Men weep without restraint. Your brother James, now King James II, lays your hand down gently on the bedsheet, covers his face and sobs. His personal loss is now complete. His political life has just begun. The historical accounts of your last moments are filled with a sense of awe and tragedy. You had survived exile, poverty, political plots, and assassination attempts. You had skillfully navigated your kingdom through treacherous waters for 25 years. In the end, you were brought down not by a conspirator's dagger or a rebel's army, but by a catastrophic failure within your own body, a failure that was then compounded into a complete and utter disaster by the very men who were trying to save you. They had bled you of roughly a quarter of your body's blood. They had burned your skin with hot irons, blistered your scalp, and scourged your digestive system with poisons. They had fed you ground-up human bones and stones from a goat's stomach. They had done everything that their science, their tradition, and their desperation could conceive of. And in the end, all they had accomplished was to make your final days a living hell. The merry monarch's life ended in a symphony of agony, a testament to the brutal ignorance of the age. The moment your last breath is drawn, a new undurgent question fills the air, first in whispers in the death chamber, and then in shouts across the kingdom. What, or who, killed the king? Your death is not just a personal tragedy or a medical event, it is a political fact that demands an explanation. And in the paranoid, conspiracy-laden atmosphere of 17th century England, the simplest explanation is rarely the one that people reach for first. The official cause of death, as announced by the physicians and the Privy Council, is apoplexy. It's a conveniently vague and suitably natural-sounding term. It suggests a sudden, overwhelming, and ultimately unavoidable act of God or nature. This is the story your brother James's new government needs the world to believe. It's clean, It's simple, and it involves no blame. But almost immediately, alternative theories begin to spread like wildfire. The most potent and popular of these is, of course, poison. For many, especially those in the anti-Catholic Whig faction, it seems impossible that a man as famously strong and healthy as you could just drop dead. It had to be foul play. And who would want to poison a Protestant king? The answer, in their minds, was obvious: the Catholics. The conspiracy theories take shape quickly. The finger of suspicion points in many directions. Some blame the Queen, your long-suffering Catholic wife Catherine. Others, more plausibly, point to the circle of hardline Catholics around your brother James. The theory goes that they poisoned you to hasten the accession of a Catholic king to the throne. It's a narrative that fits perfectly with the deep-seated Protestant fears of popish plots and Jesuit conspiracies. Never mind that James seemed genuinely grief-stricken in the world of political spin that could easily be dismissed as a clever act. This brings us to a fascinating and still unresolved historical debate. Could you have been poisoned? A few modern researchers have tried to re-examine the symptoms, looking for clues. One theory suggests mercury poisoning. Mercury was a common component in some medicines of the time, particularly for treating syphilis, an illness you may or may not have had. Chronic exposure could lead to neurological and kidney damage consistent with some of your symptoms. However, there is no direct evidence you were being treated with mercury at the time. The symptoms also align just as well, if not better, with other conditions. Another theory points to the possibility of accidental poisoning from the chemical experiments in your personal laboratory. You were a keen amateur chemist, and your lab at Whitehall was filled with all substances, including mercury and other heavy metals. Could you have unknowingly poisoned yourself over time through exposure to chemical fumes? It's a plausible idea, but one that is impossible to prove. It remains firmly in the realm of speculation. The most compelling argument against the poison theories, however, is the poison arrest's sheer incompetence, if they existed. If a cabal of conspirators had managed to administer a deadly dose of something, why would they then stand by and allow a dozen of the country's top physicians to perform a series of brutal, invasive procedures that might have accidentally counteracted the poison or revealed its presence? It makes little sense. This leads us to the third, and most likely culprit: your own doctors. This is the theory that has gained the most traction among modern historians. You weren't killed by a secret poison or a random act of nature. You were, in essence, killed by your own medical care. The initial stroke or uremic seizure was the spark, but the physician's treatment was the gasoline poured on the fire. They took a grievously ill man and, with the best of intentions and the full force of their flawed medical knowledge, systematically destroyed any chance he had of recovery. They bled him into shock, dehydrated him into kidney failure, and weakened him to the point where his body simply could not fight back. So who was the real killer? A secret Catholic assassin, a tragic laboratory accident, or a team of well-intentioned but dangerously ignorant doctors? History, like a good detective story, leaves us with multiple suspects. The official verdict was natural causes. The public's preferred culprit was poison, but the quiet, damning evidence points to the very men who tried the hardest to save you. They were not murderers. They were not murderers. They were not conspirators. In their own minds, they were heroes, is the most tragic conclusion of all. While the kingdom buzzes with dark theories of poison and conspiracy, the third group of suspects, your own physicians, are engaged in one final, solemn, and self-serving task. They must now conduct your autopsy. In the 17th century, a royal autopsy was both a scientific procedure and a powerful piece of political theatre. Its primary purpose was to arrive at an official cause of death, one that would, ideally, silence the dangerous rumors of foul play. For your exhausted and beleaguered medical team, it is also their last chance at vindication. The scene is a grim echo of the past 5 days. You are once again the silent, passive center of their attention. But now, the instruments they hold are not lancets and cord aries meant to cure, but knives and saws meant to discover. They work with a focused, clinical detachment, with members of the new King's Privy Council watching to ensure everything is properly documented. They open your body, and in the ruined landscape of your organs, they find exactly what they expect to find, or rather, they interpret what they see through the lens of their unshakable beliefs. They examine your brain and note the effusion of blood and serum, which they see as absolute proof of the violent apoplexy they diagnosed from the very beginning. They look at your discolored, congested lungs and your swollen, damaged kidneys. And they see evidence of the malignant tumors and corrupt vapors they fought so hard against. It never occurs to them that the state of your organs is a direct result of their own actions. They don't see the signs of catastrophic dehydration caused by the purges, or the damage from shock and oxygen deprivation caused by the bloodletting. They see the wreckage and congratulate themselves on having correctly identified the storm. They were not the storm's creators, they were merely its first witnesses. The autopsy report is drawn up, confirming death by apoplexy, and in the official record they are exonerated. But the most compelling part of their story happens after the formal duties are done. To truly understand their perspective, we must imagine your chief physician, Sir Charles Scarberg, alone in his study that evening. He is a man of immense learning, a noted anatomist and a collector of books. He is not a fool or a butcher. He is a pillar of the scientific establishment. He sits down with his diary, a meticulous record he has kept throughout the ordeal. He dips his quill in the ink, and the words he writes are not those of a man confessing to his mistakes. They are the words of a man grieving a battle he feels he should have won. He documents every single treatment, from the first 16 ounces of blood drawn from your arm to the final, pathetic application of the pigeon carcasses. He lists the powerful purgatives, the blistering agents, the skull extracts. To us, it reads like a charge sheet. To him, it is a testament to his diligence. It is proof that he left no stone unturned, that he deployed every weapon in the medical arsenal of his time. He would have written of his profound sorrow, not of guilt. The narrative in his head and in his journal is one of a heroic struggle against an impossibly powerful foe. The disease was of such a violent and malignant nature, he might have written, that it resisted the most potent remedies and the most diligent applications of our art. He doesn't question the remedies, he only laments the strength of the disease. He sees himself as the noble general who, despite using perfect strategy and deploying all his forces, was simply overwhelmed by the enemy's superior numbers. And this is where historians still argue. When we read the journals of men like Scarberg, are we reading a sincere, if tragically misguided, account of a medical effort, or are we reading a carefully constructed professional unlegal defense, written by men who knew their reputations were on the line and that they could be blamed for the king's death? Was this diary a private lament, or a public statement in waiting? The truth is likely an inextricable blend of both. Scarberg closes his diary. He has done his duty. He has fought the good fight. He has documented his efforts for posterity. He is, in his own conscience, clear. He is heartbroken that he failed to save you, but he is secure in the knowledge that he did everything right according to the sacred texts of his profession. He will go to his own grave believing that you died not because of him, but in spite of his best efforts. It is this sincere, unshakable, and fatally misguided self-assurance that serves as the true, unwritten epitaph for the whole ghastly affair. After the autopsy, after the official reports and the private lamentations, all that is left is dispose of the body. You who lived a life of such theatricality and spectacle might have expected a funeral of breathtaking grandeur, a long period of public lying in state, a magnificent procession through the streets of London, a solemn and glorious service at Westminster Abbey with the whole nation looking on. That is what should have happened. That is what protocol demanded for a king who had reigned for a quarter of a century. But it is not what you get. Your brother, the new King James II, is a man in a hurry. He is also a man acutely aware of the precariances of his situation. He is a Catholic king in an aggressively Protestant nation. The last thing he wants is a large, public gathering that could become a flashpoint for riots or demonstrations. A grand funeral for the beloved Protestant merry monarch would only highlight the uncomfortable contrast with his stern, Catholic successor. He needs the transition to be as swift and as quiet as possible. He needs to move on. So the decision is made to give you a funeral that is, by royal standards, shockingly modest and rushed. There will be no grand public procession. There will be no lying in state for the weeping masses. Your death, which was such a public, crowded affair, will be followed by a funeral that is almost secretive in its haste. Your body, having been autopsied and embalmed, is placed in a simple lead coffin. On the night of February 14th, just 8 days after your death, a small, somber procession takes place entirely within the confines of the Palace of Whitehall and Westminster Abbey. There is no grand parade through the streets. Your coffin is carried quietly, at night, to the palace galleries and across the park, escorted by a small group of loyal nobles and your household servants, dancing shadows on the walls as they carry you on your final, short journey. The service itself is held in Westminster Abbey, but it is a muted, understated affair. It is a Protestant service, of course it has to be. The secret Catholic rites you received on your deathbed remain a tightly guarded secret. So, you are buried according to the rituals of a church that, in your final moments, you quietly renounced. It is the last great irony of your life. Your coffin is lowered into a vault in the Henry VI Chapel, a part of the abbey reserved for royalty. But you are not given a grand, individual tomb with a magnificent effigy, like many of your predecessors. You are placed in the same vault that already holds the remains of other royals, an unceremonious addition to an already crowded space. The public is stunned by the lack of pomp. Many feel it is a deep sign of disrespect to a king who, for all his faults, was genuinely popular. It is seen as churlish and cheap on the part of the new king. This perception of James as an ungrateful and cold-hearted successor further damages his already fragile public image. It is one of his first major political miscalculations. Historians have debated James's motives for this hurried funeral. Was it purely a political calculation, a desire to avoid public unrest, or was there a religious element to it? Did James, a devout Catholic, find it distasteful to preside over a lavish Protestant ceremony for a brother he knew had died in the Catholic faith? Was the public act of hypocrisy? It's a compelling thought, suggesting that James's private piety may have clashed with his public duty, resulting in this strangely subdued compromise. And so, your story ends, not with a bang but with a whimper. Your life was a vibrant, chaotic, colorful tapestry of wit, indulgence, political intrigue, and scientific curiosity. Your death was a 5-day descent into a medieval hell of medical torture, and your funeral was a hurried, almost shamefaced affair, an epilogue that failed to do justice to the drama of the main story. You are sealed in your coffin, laid to rest in the cold, dark vault, and the nation moves on, bracing itself for the turbulent and short-lived reign of the king who has just buried you. The era of the merry monarch is over. The curtain has fallen on a story of incredible life and unbelievable death. And so the story ends. The echoes of Whitehall Palace begin to fade, replaced by the soft hum of the world around you now. The quiet weight of the blanket, the stillness of your own room. You are no longer the king, trapped in a velvet-draped bed of state. You are here, safe and sound. The frantic energy of the physicians, the hushed whispers of the courtiers, and the ticking of the royal clocks, all of these sounds now soften and dissolve, becoming just a gentle murmur at the very edge of your hearing. A story that has been told and is now settling into the quiet dust of the past. The figures themselves, Charles with his weary, apologetic smile, James with his conflicted tears, the physicians, with their terrible certainty, are receding now. They are turning back into words, back into faint portraits hanging in a long, quiet gallery of your mind. This is the space between the story and the dream, where the narrative unravels and your own thoughts can begin to drift. Let the details float away. Let the names and the dates become unimportant. All that matters now is the stillness, the comfort, the slow, easy rhythm of your own breathing. The story is over. The night is quiet, and sleep is waiting, like a cool, gentle hand, to finally close the book for you. The end of the article. Good night.